Join us for 3 days in Orlando, Florida in March 2026 for an event designed to equip IT professionals like you with the tools, knowledge, and strategies to navigate the ever-changing cybersecurity landscape. Secure your spot and register to join us for 3 days of immersive learning, collaboration, and skill building with hands-on hacking labs and much more. Network with peers from around the globe. Share experiences and learn from real-world case studies, all aimed at enhancing your capabilities as an IT professional. Elevate your experience at the after party. Registration is now open. Register now for Zero Trust World 2026 and take the first step towards a more secure tomorrow.
Good morning and welcome to 100 Days to Secure Your Environment. Today, Rob has grown a new head of hair.
And I'm Rob Allen.
Yeah, and so we're actually joined by Michael Jenkins, the CTO of ThreatLocker. Rob didn't grow some hair.
No.
We sent him to Brazil instead. So he's having fun in Brazil at a Gartner conference, I believe. We're going to do some cool stuff this week. Before we begin, let's talk about what we did last week, on what you should have done last week, which was to review and remove unused policies. Now, I know a lot of people have only deployed their allow listing solution during this webinar series, so they may not be ready to do this, but they should understand it at least. You go into ThreatLocker portal and you can say which policies you can remove. Promote policies, application policies to a group or organization level where they're used across the entire environment, so you don't have to manage multiple policies. We ensured that the USB policies are applied, including limiting the amount of rights to USB where you have to permit USBs. We also blocked Telnet in Windows, I believe both server and client, and those are community policies. And then we tested policies to make sure they're running. So we did some PowerShell scripts to make sure that PowerShell was actually ring fencing. We did some allow listing scripts. This week we got a bunch of new stuff, and we've actually got a little bit of a product announcement as well, which isn't technically a formal announcement yet, but Michael's going to demo it. And the reason I asked Michael to come on is because you actually wrote this yourself.
I did, yes.
So if it's broken, his fault.
You can blame me.
So this live demo will either go absolutely fantastically or not fantastically at all. Other things we want to talk about is detecting mass data change and automatically locking down storage policies. I thought we'd already done this, but apparently not. I know we did USBs before, and we're going to go through some other checks as well. So we're probably going to start off with the new stuff we've done, which is it's really this idea of external data. Because right now you've got ThreatLocker. We log pretty much everything, I think.
I think so, about now.
So we've got network traffic, registry changes, elevations, storage, reads, writes, executions. What we don't log is what's not there. We don't log other machines. We don't log things that aren't on your endpoint. So if you're at home, it's great because we can see a user's web traffic at home. But if someone comes onto your corporate network and they access the internet from your corporate network and they go to a site they shouldn't go to, or we can't see that, it's invisible. Unless, I guess, if you've got DNS, you can see that. But if you've got maybe Telnet or something to an IP address.
A bit limited.
Relatively limited. And I think we actually had an alert on our own environment. So we got an alert from one of our firewalls 2-3 weeks ago.
Yeah, an alert saying that something had gone to a suspicious IP.
And we looked in ThreatLocker and
it was interesting to go through, and some of the product I'm going to show today is going to show why we were able to limit and make ourselves feel better very quickly.
Because when we looked at the endpoints, nothing had gone to that IP.
Nothing at all.
So we went through the firewall logs, and end of the story is it wasn't a suspicious IP at all, but that's not the point. We didn't know what went to it.
No, there was that moment of panic. You get an alert. You have to then figure out where it came from. You're going through all the logs in all the different places to make sure everything's okay.
So, 6 months ago, we updated our Unified Audit, so you can now have 100 million rows and search very, very quickly. It was about 6 months?
I think about 6 months ago, yeah.
So now that we can ingest so much more data and search much faster, Michael's been working on a new Syslog ingester, basically bringing SIEM-like technologies to ThreatLocker, so you can now not just ingest ThreatLocker data from our endpoint, from Office 365, but also from
your firewalls, switches, anything that can send a Syslog, we can receive.
And all searchable in one central place for the Unified Audit. So now, Syslog's also a bit of a pain in the ass to set up normally, so maybe you can show us how easy you've made it. But before we begin on Michael showing, the goal of this week is for you to start logging those extra devices. We're not here to tell you to use ThreatLocker. Well, we are. We'd love you to use ThreatLocker, but I think we always look at everything we've done through this webinar series. We've done internally in ThreatLocker as well, and where we've actually made a number of product enhancements because we found that things were difficult that we were telling you to do. So a number of updates have happened in the last few weeks. There's more updates coming over the next few weeks. Like that auto-populate on ring fencing was a really cool feature we added because of this 100-day series, because we ran through the whole 100-day series ourselves. One of the things we found is when setting up Syslog, because we obviously had a SIEM Syslog data ingesting into it, it was very difficult, very tedious. So that's when Michael started actually looking at how we can build this into our own environment so we can set that up really, really easy. So Michael, do you want to go over and demonstrate how easy this is?
Yeah, so before I share my screen and go on a demo, I just want to talk about the different types of Syslog, because obviously you've got the BSD, which is your more traditional Syslog, and IEFT, which is the more structured that they brought out. We also found that each of our different devices had their vendor-specific Syslogs, which made importing them a little bit more of a challenge, but ThreatLocker can ingest all of them. So it doesn't matter where your Syslog is coming from, we can ingest every single one. So if we share my screen now, and what I'm going to do is I'm just going to create a group now, and we have a new group type called ingester. So same with your other groups, you can pick how long it's going to be checking in. The group type is ingester, and then you can name it whatever you like. Once we've done that, we can go and install the computer the same way that we would anything else. It has its own installer, so we can just pick the group and download the installer. And this is where my demo is going to fail me. There we go. Failed on a browser. So I've made it really easy to install the ingester. You will download your stub installer like you're used to. You're going to see your group key.
Worth noting actually on this, Zero Trust, you cannot install the Syslog ingester unless you have approved it in ThreatLocker. Just because it's made by ThreatLocker, we don't automatically trust it. It can be used to direct traffic potentially somewhere else, so you should only install it in controlled environments. You shouldn't just allow it on all of your endpoints. So when you do download it and it gets blocked, normal process permitting that software.
Yeah, we have a built-in for the ThreatLocker Syslog ingester as well. Now, you see I've set up my policy to elevate this because my user is not an elevated user. It does require elevation to install. It will create a service. And then once it's installed, as with everything, you're going to be able to find it under our devices page. If we go over to agent settings, create that new setting, and you're going to see something in here called a listener configurations. This is where we can configure what our Syslog is going to actually listen on. You can apply it to the group or the individual computer. You can specify if you only want it to come from a single IP. You can do that, or you can do all IPs. Specify the port that it's listening on. And then these are the two parts that you get to be a little bit more customizable. So at the moment, we have network and other. So if you want it to show as network traffic in your Unified Audit, you can select that. So if this is coming from your firewall, you can choose network, or we can have other for your other stuff for your general Syslogs. And then more importantly, we have this here, which is our filtering. Now, all Syslogs come in those three formats that I mentioned before, the two formats, and then the vendor specific. That's just a general Syslog. It's going to have that standard format. But we are putting in our own parsing filtering in so that you can actually, if you're using Big-IP or Meraki, and we will be adding more to these, you can actually select that, and then it's going to parse it into more usable data in our Unified Audit. So you'll still get the Syslog, but you'll also get the source IP, the destination IP, the MAC address, and whatever else it may send up. So for my demo, I'm using a Meraki, and then I can call it whatever I like. So I'm going to call it Demo Firewall. This here is what you're going to be able to search your Unified Audit for. So I'm going to create that, and then on the next check-in, that's going to pull down to that machine, and we're going to be able to actually see the logs coming into the Unified Audit. Now, I did install it earlier today, and I put it as general so I could actually show you this. So this is just general Syslog. This is one of the logs that I can get from the firewall in its standard format. If you're using something that isn't a Big-IP or Meraki or anything that we've currently added, you'll be able to still see it like this. You'll be able to see all the data that you need, and you can actually pass this through to us, and we'll actually build in an additional parser. So you'll be able to parse that data for yourself as well, and we'll be able to build that out so it'll be a little bit more usable for you.
So this case here, is this passed or not passed?
This is not passed.
Okay. What I'm going to ask everyone to do, and I'm having a problem with my Zoom, but hopefully I get it open so I can read some of these. My Q&A is not working. But what I'm going to ask everyone to do is post in the chat what you are most likely to ingest, or not the chat, the Q&A, what are you are most likely to ingest this log from. We have a bunch of parsers built in. We can actually turn them around really quick, same day. So if you have something specific, as long as you set it to log generic.
Yep. General syslog, the way I've just shown you before. So on that act... I'll just show that one more time on the agent settings. If you have that set to general syslog, it's going to show up the way I saw it before. Now that I've picked Meraki, you'll see that the format has changed. And we can go in, we can see now that we have everything separated a little bit more. We have the source IP, the source port, the destination IP, the destination port, the domain, the MAC address. Each syslog depends. You can get different information, but we're going to be able to parse based on what you're seeing. And the good thing is now, obviously, you can search. Whatever you're looking for, you can search. So if you want to see Google, helps if I can spell, we can actually see those syslogs coming in, where they're coming from. And with Meraki, we actually get like MAC address, so we can see a lot of useful information. Source IP, MAC address.
And of course, we can filter by these.
Yep.
So somebody's asked a few questions. First of all, a lot of different firewalls, a lot more than I expected, actually. So WatchGuard, one of them, Meraki, coming up quite a lot. FireEye, Checkpoint, firewalls, Fortinet, Palo Alto, of course, lots of these. SonicWall has come up quite a few times. Linux servers themselves. Bear in mind, if you're running ThreatLocker on your Linux servers, we're going to log all of the data using our raw engine, but technically it's Syslog ingester 2 can forward on. So first firewalls, basically pretty much everything you think of. SonicWall's come up quite a few times, and WatchGuard, as well as Palo Alto. Best thing to do, if we don't have a native parser, turn it on, contact your account manager in SE or support and say, hey, I'd like a native parser, and they'll pass that through. We have a dedicated department, Michael mainly, which is going to be passed off to someone actually creating those, because it's just a different DLL. We're going to pass you a different DLL. This is the parser you need to parse it, but it will actually send it in an unstructured format to us anyway. Once we get the data, then we can parse it. It's much harder for us to parse something that we don't know what looks like. Yep. So make sure you turn it on first.
One thing I can say for sure is everybody sends it a little bit differently.
Ubiquity's come up quite a lot. I need that for my house. I want to figure out what my kids are doing on the internet with these. The problem is they've all got jobs now, so they keep going to buy their own devices, so it's harder for me to control them. I limited the MAC addresses on the Wi-Fi, though. Although it doesn't help when one of them's a little smart ass and changes his MAC address.
Yeah, well, they'll be able to... Everything you see from your Ubiquity is going to log into here then, and you'll be able to track them.
I'm not sure I want to see it all, to be honest. So your kids are still young. You don't have to worry. Okay. Someone's asked about licensing subscription models. Essentially, the licensing is per data gigabyte ingested. It's the highest price is when you essentially, I'm not sure what the minimum commit on, it's like 10 gig or something, is $5 per gigabyte ingested. And it goes substantially down depending on what you commit to. If you speak to your account manager today, they'll be able to get you any proposals on that. If you want to try it out beforehand, they can set up a trial before that as well. know what you're ingesting is really, really important. Other questions somebody's asked is, are we going to be able to do for more SIEM capabilities with it? The plan is to continue to expand this. Of course, if you use Cloud Detect right now, you know you can set up alerts in Cloud Detect for things like Office 365. That's expanding very, very soon to other platforms, Google, Amazon, or AWS, GitHub, and other platforms as well. So you can actually set up rules and alerts based on that. Also, we're going to be able to pull in the Syslog data and run the same things in Cloud Detect that's coming in the future. So a lot more will happen. For now, you'll be able to see all your logs in one place, search for those logs, filter. So if you want to search for a website, if it's mapped and structured, really, really easy, filter by network traffic and say, here's my domain, show me everything that hit this domain, which will be really, really useful as well.
Worth noting as well, a single ingester can actually handle multiple syslog sending. So it will listen on different ports, different IPs, so you can actually set up one ingester to send all that data.
Yeah, so you don't need... And what does it need? Essentially a Windows 7 or above? Don't put on Windows 7.
I was about to say, it has to be... It's .NET Framework 4.7.2 or above, and it requires 64-bit.
Who's going to log a ticket saying it's not working on my Windows 7 device because they didn't update .NET? Generally speaking...
Or a 32-bit machine.
Yeah, so 64-bit only.
64-bit only.
Somebody's asked how much data does it generate. That really depends on the log. So we're generating like 20 million rows an hour or something in our own.
Something like that, yeah.
In our own log. So that's obviously a lot of data that's being sent. If you've got... Now, of course, that's a data center level firewall. If you're turning it onto a small business firewall with 100 users, it's not going to be that much data. But it really depends what you send.
It's also quite small packets of data as well. There's not a lot to it. It's not as comprehensive as what you'd normally get from like an execute.
And when we use the parse, we parse at the agent before it sends it up, yes?
Before it sends it up, yes.
Which is nice because we actually turn everything into integers. So instead of saying source IP, we change it to 35. And so it'll map directly, which is obviously a lot less data than... I mean, we're talking about bytes here, but
yeah.
it will actually reduce it because we'll convert it into a standardized data structure and then send it straight up to ThreatLocker. So not a huge amount, but if you're on a ship in the middle of the ocean and you've got $1,000 per gigabit or gigabyte uploaded, maybe expensive.
Maybe.
So
best thing to do is turn it on and kind of see how you're doing. You'll know within an hour what kind of you're uploading.
So somebody's asked how ThreatLocker is doing on being SOC 2 compliant. We've been SOC 2 compliant since 2020. We update it every single year. We also completed our FedRAMP audit, so we are now FedRAMP ready on the marketplace. So we completed the full 3 PAO. So if you are requiring CMMC or you need FedRAMP audited products, we are able to do that. So that's done every year on pretty much on schedule.
Yeah.
Do you recommend a dedicated VM to ingest agent? That depends.
I recommend that whatever you run it on has ThreatLocker running.
Well, that's definitely a good thing. So I think if you're a large enterprise, generally separations of roles is good.
We see usually around 500 to 700 meg of RAM max, and that's on R1. So
that's the one ingesting like 20 million logs an hour. So
yeah.
it's not huge.
It's not.
What's the CPU like on that?
0.
Oh, 0. So
it obviously depends on how many you're ingesting from. So if you've got 5 firewalls all send into the same one, it's using a little bit extra CPU. But resources has been absolutely minimal.
All of the so we're literally, this is the first time we've spoken about this public. Michael has been locked in a room for working on this, but we will have KBs and everything, install instructions, all available at the end of the day. So if anyone's looking for them, again, ask your account manager on how to get everything. Someone's asked about deployment. Will the ingester work offline if Syslog is being passed on the same network? Well, it ingests, but I guess it just queues.
It queues.
So your internet goes down to ThreatLocker, we're just going to queue in memory?
In memory.
Yeah.
And then
so you might use more RAM if
it restarts, it'll save it to disk.
Okay. So yes, it will work offline. So and then when you get your internet, it will come back. Of course, if you've got a firewall and you're offline, your internet's down, it probably isn't doing much.
No.
So, okay, I'm going to see what else we've got.
While you're looking through that, that is one time the resources will go up. Obviously, the longer you're offline, the more we're storing in memory.
Someone said, is there a recommended number of machines to ingest Syslog on a single ingester? You can set up. I don't think there's a limit, is there?
Resource usage is so minimal. Honestly, if it's on the same network, I personally like having a little bit of redundancy and having things on multiple places, but technically you could have everything in one.
So somebody's asked about FedRAMP on the full TL stack. Yes, everything that we have available meets all of the FedRAMP standards. Where you get a little bit complicated is when you look at third-party integrations. So if you're using our FedRAMP instance, there's a hard no. You cannot use third-party integrations. Using our non-FedRAMP instance, which still has the same security controls in place as FedRAMP, but it will let you, and then you potentially fall out of compliance. So if you send your synchronization to a ticket system, for example, that doesn't meet FedRAMP compliance. But if you're actually using our FedRAMP instance, it's just pure no, you can't do that. And some of those integrations are actually security tools. So
yeah.
It makes people mad, but everything in ThreatLocker goes through the same FedRAMP test. It's also one agent, which is nice. Answer live. Now that we get the logs in, I don't know about a honeypot. I mean, we have lots of honeypots on the web, but I mean, you can create a honeypot if you want, and send the logs. I mean, technically, if you create a honeypot with ThreatLocker agent on, it will give you a whole bunch of interesting.
Makes for a very interesting unified audit.
There is no ingestion limits, but again, obviously, it's cost based. So if you ingest 6 terabytes in a day, that gets up there. Yeah, it's basically someone's asked, is it one place to look at all logs? And that's the idea. We've got the ThreatLocker logs, you've got your Office 365 logs. Worth noting, if you're using Office 365, we do have a beta function where we'll actually show all of the logs in Unified Audit as well. That doesn't cost more. It's included in your Office 365 license. However, or I guess your ThreatLocker license for Cloud Detect, make sure you do request it gets turned on because it's beta at the moment. I think we're turning it on for everyone.
We will be, yes.
Automatically, but
everyone can be done on request now.
Okay, so cool about Syslog. Now I want to talk about other stuff with logs, which is Microsoft Office 365 Cloud Detect. I never remember the licenses. Do you know which license requires for impossible travel in Microsoft 365?
I do not.
It's like P1 or P2 or something.
I think it's P2.
Okay, so Microsoft has a feature built into Office that basically has this impossible travel. It says, hey, you have to have the latest version, and it will create an alert, or it will send an alert to ThreatLocker if you have a P2 license. So you can create an alert. Obviously, a lot of people don't necessarily want to pay for a Microsoft P2 license, so they didn't necessarily get access to that feature. We've now added a new feature in ThreatLocker for impossible travel where we actually calculate it for you. Now, what's really, really cool about it is our Cloud Detect is not just going to be Office 365. So we are adding other features as well, other integration sources, which means we're not just looking at one log, we're looking at multiple logs. So essentially, if you log into your GitHub account and then you log into your Office account, it can compare those IP addresses and see. And we're going to be bringing all of those logs in there. We have added impossible travel to Office 365 where we do our own calculations. So you can go in, you can look at what's impossible. Now, there's a big problem with impossible travel, both on Microsoft and in general. I was in Dublin last week, 3 weeks ago now, and I was using my phone, I was on my email, and then I went into the office, and it flagged an impossible travel alert. And the reason it did that is because when I went to what's my IP address, it basically said, you're in Florida, because Verizon was showing me as a Florida IP address because I was connecting to Verizon's network while in Dublin. As soon as I went into the office in Dublin, it said, oh, you're now in Dublin. That's impossible because you went from Florida to Dublin in 12 seconds. Which is
impressive.
It's impressive. So when we've been looking at this, and this happens on all impossible travel, when we were looking at this, we essentially said, well, how do we stop this? And this is one of the homework items for today. Go and install the ThreatLocker app if you're using ThreatLocker on your mobile devices. We don't charge for the app. It doesn't cost anything. There's 2 apps. There's ThreatLocker Admin and there's ThreatLocker. You don't want to install ThreatLocker Admin on your users' phones.
No, definitely not.
Just the ThreatLocker app. Basically, when you install that on the ThreatLocker app, and I'm going to show you what it looks like. Don't know how well the camera will work here. It's going to pretty much do nothing. It's going to, I don't think the zoom's so great, but it's going to show you online. It's going to show your IP address, and it's going to check in every 60 seconds. Now, You can turn on location services. You can turn off location services. None of them are required. What location services allows you to do is check in automatically when you change location. So it forces Apple to check in a little bit more. If you don't want to do that, that's okay. You don't need location services. You just need to open the app when you get somewhere. Now, when you open this app, this is going to tell ThreatLocker that Danny just, or even if you don't open it, if you've got location services on and motion services on, Danny just landed in Dublin. This is Danny's new IP address. Danny just went in the office. This is Danny's IP address. When you use our impossible travel, we have an extra policy that basically says, is it a trusted IP address? And if it is a trusted IP address, meaning it came from one of your phones or your laptops, it's going to say this is no longer impossible travel. This is legitimate travel. So that's really, really important. If you install this app, it's going to reduce your false positive rates on impossible travel. Also, when you get an impossible travel alert, if you've got our MDR, it's going to go to our MDR. If you don't have our MDR, it's going to go to your alert board. And then you can choose to lock out the account. You can set it to lock out automatically. We don't generally recommend that. You could use a score if you wanted. So you could say, hey, if impossible travel trips, add 100.
Something else.
And someone created an inbox rule, then do this. Really, really good feature. It's available in beta. So again, ask your account manager. We're only adding beta customers at the moment, but feel free to just email your account manager and say, hey, I want to turn on this new impossible travel feature. It's actually part of an advanced algorithm. Yeah, that's the word I'm looking for. Advanced algorithm. So we're actually going to do more than just impossible travel. We're looking for unusual behaviors, impossible behaviors, things outside of the usual, which will trigger alerts for the customer. So it's been pretty difficult in the making. We've done a lot of technology to make this work. But what's really cool, it will cross-reference with your app. So it's not impossible if it's your device. And that will reduce your false positives. And it will also ensure that we're going to cross-reference with other sources as we get those other sources in. So, for example, I don't log into GitHub that much. I don't code that much anymore. But when I do, it's been more than 24 hours. But if I've just logged into my GitHub account when we launch that integration, which is the next one we're doing, it's going to say, Danny's just logged into GitHub and he logged into Office 4 minutes ago from a different country. Not possible. So really, really useful things. Okay, let's see if we got any other questions. Somebody asked, if Verizon left you in Florida, how did the app know I'm in Dublin? Well, it's tracking your IP, but if you have location services, it's also tracking your location. But it doesn't really matter if it knows I'm in Dublin, because what happens is it sees I was on this IP, I'm now on a second IP, and this IP is checking in from my phone, so it's therefore a trusted IP. And we're essentially cross-referencing, saying, hey, if Danny went onto the ThreatLocker office Wi-Fi in Dublin and he gets the ThreatLocker office Wi-Fi IP address, immediately say, his phone's going to check in, tell him this is our IP. It's going to say, this is the trusted IP. We don't need to worry about it.
Yeah, because as soon as your phone changes IP, it's going to update us anyway.
And if you don't have location services, the user just has to open the app. You can also use that app. I know we did a session on this for conditional access, but even if you're not using it for conditional access, really, really good to use it for anything else. I want to jump back. I'm going to share my screen here. I'm going to jump back to... Just give me 1 second. I thought I was logged in. I am. To ThreatLocker Detect, because I thought we'd already done this, but apparently we didn't. So and I'm going to go into ThreatLocker Detect because I want to create a new policy to automatically detect mass data exfiltration. Not exfiltration, sorry, we already did that one. Mass data changes. And the idea of this is, if you're blocking software by default, if you're blocking executables, if you're ring-fencing PowerShell, ransomware really isn't something that's likely to happen. But it's not what we know, it's what we don't know bites us in the ass. So one of the things we want to do is put a policy in place to automatically detect a large volume of changes of files. And I put this in place in ThreatLocker, and I kind of bit myself because it hurt us, because what I didn't realize, I said, no one should be changing 200 files in an hour. That seems just unreasonable. It's got to be ransomware. Unless you're a developer and you compile software, and Visual Studio creates 3,000 temporary files in that hour. And that's obviously a big problem. So what I did is I put a policy in place here. And essentially what it's going to do is it's going to say, I think it may be pulled from community or maybe not. It says, if the action type is right and the occurrences is more than 200 files in an hour, then what I want to do is create an alert and also enable a storage policy. And I'm going to show you that storage policy. Now, the storage policy is going to block all writes, whether it's if it's in a protected storage path. So if it's on a network share, if it's a Visual Studio Code file, it's going to block it from being written. But what I added into this, and this is useful, so this is the policy you probably should create. And start off by creating an alert, and if you get no alerts, then you've probably set the threshold right. You know what I would do? Lower the threshold so you do get alerts, and then increase it until you stop getting alerts. So
don't block everybody by default?
Not
the developers, anyway.
Yeah. So what we essentially do is say action type matches write, occurrences matches 200. Put it as 10 just so you can test it, but don't enable the storage policy. And then what I did is I took some out. In your any conditions here, basically change it so full path ends with any common file types of network shares and where you store your data. Not temporary files, not C# files. Michael remembers this.
Oh, I do.
I always say I would rather shut my developers down for an hour than shut a customer down for an hour. So if it doesn't work for us, it doesn't work for anyone. So you can go in here, and here's some examples. Office files, PDF files. So basically we say if full path ends with .pdf, anything else. So I've got XLS, XL, docx, PPTX, I guess PPT as well, if anyone still uses them. PPT.
Obviously, they can use image files, anything you're normally saving on these shares.
Yeah. Idea is you don't want to go and say all files in the detection, because you might end up having some temporary files that trigger the detection for no reason. But 200, 1 hour, here's my file types I'm going to monitor, remove that last one, create an alert, and automatically enable a storage policy to block write protected files. So when I save that, I'm going to go into storage control now. This is kind of annoying me, because I've been setting this up and it's driving me insane, this hidden thing. I'm going to change this so it shows the hidden policies or disable policies by default, and you uncheck to hide them. And the reason being is because I have these triggered policies here. So this one here is block write access to protected files. It's not enabled by default, applies to the entire org. It says write, says deny, simple as. But it seems pretty simple.
Fairly simple. Block everything.
Obviously, if I enable this now, people are going to yell at me. But what I've done, and bear in mind, it only enables on the machine that triggers it. So if someone writes 200 files, it's not, even though the policy applies to the entire org, you're enabling on a machine level when it triggers. If I go and write 200 files now, it's going to trigger this policy. It's going to create an alert. I'm going to see if I can find an alert that I did on Friday. Threats. Oh, here's one. Excessive file change was detected. So what we can see here is all of the threats that happen, but the one that's bothering us is excessive file changes. We can see the last file that caused it. We can see the number of occurrences, and it just enables that storage policy. Now, this is really, really, really quick. So someone's on your server, encrypting files. The moment that hits 200, boom, no more files are being changed until someone's cleared this alert.
Yeah, it happens all at the endpoint.
So we're not waiting for it to come up to the cloud and come back down, at which point 6,000 files have been encrypted. You can put limits. You should put limits. What I would recommend is today, go off, create a policy to alert, put the number lower than you think it should be so you can test the alert, and then keep increasing that until the alert stops coming through, and then you can start auto-replying to that. Maybe run it for a month. And you can create multiple policies too. So you could create one that immediately I put in 1,000 and I don't feel like I didn't get an alert in 24 hours or 48 hours, so I feel pretty confident. I can say I'm going to leave that 1,000 in there with an automatic lockdown, but I'm also going to create a second one for 200 just to see if I can lower it later on.
You can also, if you do end up locking someone down like you did, we can be replaced really easily from here.
Yeah. Also,
users can then get back to work pretty quickly.
So I get this alert if I realize this was a dumb policy. I go in, change this to 400, hit save, and then I hit clear all alerts, and within 60 seconds, everything's back functioning.
Exactly. Users back working, and you then make your changes and hope the next time it works.
So go off, create the alert policy now. In 2 weeks' time, go and create a lockdown policy. Be more aggressive on the alert policies. Be less aggressive on the enforcement policies to begin with. The other thing I want to bring up is monitored storage paths. We did this last week. You weren't here, so we added that new feature where you can specify monitored storage paths, and one of the recommendations I did was set file extensions, so docx, pptx, things like that. We are going to add a new feature because seemingly 600 people, or I don't know, at least half the webinar listened to me, I think, and started getting high amounts of writes in their environment audited. And the reason being was because they put things like star.txt, and suddenly it was monitoring the Windows folder. So they had 2 million rows in their Unified Audit. ThreatLocker was consuming more CPU because it was monitoring every text file, temporary text file that was written by Windows. So we're going to make a change in a future build of ThreatLocker. So whenever you add one of these, unless it's explicitly monitoring a Windows path, it's going to exclude the Windows folder from that. And the same with the app data folder. For now, I'm going to go into here again. Just review this again. Don't be too aggressive on file extensions. If it's something that's likely to be in the Windows folder, just be very careful about it as a monitored path. So I'll go back into, you can get to this from a few different places. Storage control is one. This tells you what everything we monitor by default. I just put a couple of examples in. If you say, hey, I want to monitor all my photos on my server, server 1 / I'll just say photos. I want to add JPEG, for example. You don't have to say star.jpg. You can put a path in like that. Or you could just monitor that share. So we could say, ooh, well, that'll work too. Oh, I guess I need no wildcard at the end. So I wouldn't go too wild on the things that might be common Windows files. Okay, so again, just have a look at that. I know I said put a load of things in there. I did say don't put something too common in there. I guess
start small.
My support department was not happy. So they were very, very upset when we went from like 40 to 50% more tickets in a day because people had turned it on and their CPU had gone through the roof because they'd added a wildcard into there that was too broad. Okay, Windows Recall. You know what Windows Recall is?
I do not.
So think of, what was the other one that Windows had? You know what Windows Getting to Know You is?
Yes.
Microsoft's very friendly named keylogger that has the cat's out the bag. It's a keylogger. So Microsoft replaced this on ARM. It's not just on ARM, by the way. It's on anything that's got a high enough GPU, I guess, to do AI for Copilot. And they added this new feature called Windows Recall. And Windows Recall turns on pretty much monitoring everything you do. It becomes incredibly nosy. It's like your wife's sister or something. And
not sneaky at all.
I'm gonna get. I know I'm gonna get cancelled for saying that today. So, the good news is she's got 5 sisters, so you didn't know which one. So it just basically spies on everything, key logs, screenshots, everything that's happening on your machine, and I guess it's so it can give you better AI information about yourself. And also tell Microsoft more about yourself. You can disable this. We have created a policy in community to disable recall. So if you go into ThreatLocker community, and I think my guess is we can just search for the word recall. Oh, sorry, it's not a community policy.
Config manager policy.
Config manager policy, that's where it is. Configuration manager. Where is that gone? We can go into here. Type recall, configure Windows recall. Basically setting a registry key. You don't have to use ThreatLocker. We'll actually tell you the registry key here. You go and set this registry 0. Turn on is it's off, and turn on 0. I'm not sure. So turn on is 0. Turn off is 1. I'm not sure which is which, but you can look that up and. But set this registry key. Use your RMM. Use ThreatLocker configuration manager. Turn off.
Just basically enforce
disable.
that it stays off.
Power recall, and this will stop that monitoring your environment and make your users a little less spied on. So unlikely to hurt anyone, given the fact it's mostly on ARM laptops and really newer laptops right now, but very quick win, very easy win. Okay, I'm trying to think if I got anything else. I think I'm actually through. I've done impossible travel. Just look for questions.
I think you were going to talk about canary files as well.
Oh, canary files. Yes. Let me get through the questions and we'll jump back to canary files. If I can. Does the mass change policy only work on endpoints or servers, or can it be linked to? So the storage policy is applying on anything that's got the ThreatLocker agent, so it'll be servers, workstations. I'm not sure. I'm not sure what the two was. Ransomware protection for write files. I thought you were creating policy for data. Did I say data exfil?
You did, then you corrected it to multiple writes.
Yeah, so we did data exfil before, and now we're doing ransomware. So we did that, I think, a few weeks ago on the webinar, so that's there. So you can create a policy to also detect data exfil. This one is for ransomware. There's so many of them.
Just excessive writes.
So somebody's asked if OneDrive sync would trigger the alert from the policy. Potentially the answer is, if you did an initial sync, is yes. You can actually exclude the OneDrive process. And this is one of the reasons we say create an alert. Exclude the OneDrive process if it's going to prevent it from doing that. And you can also include certain usernames and things like that. Defrag will not trigger it. I don't think you need to defrag drives on solid state either. But it would not trigger it. Can you describe the policy will prevent saving passwords in a browser? I can look at it on community. I'm pretty sure the one that I'm going to go and check the community, because I know we have one to prevent Chrome saving passwords. Actually, I'm not sure. I'm going to go look. I know there's a storage policy to stop it writing.
I think there is, yeah. It blocks a certain location.
So I think that's the one. Does MDR also look at Syslog ingest? MDR will be able to look at your Syslog ingest at looking at additional information. So if you are ingesting data, they can see your unified audit, so they can search for things in your organization and use that in their thing. When we add this into Cloud Detect, which we will eventually, they'll be able to get alerts based on that as well. I just added configure Windows the configure Windows recall, show status disabled. How do you enable? I'll just show that again. So that's actually not too many questions. I think that's, well, I said not too many. So let me share back here again. Go back to config manager. And I just want to double check we don't have a config manager. Here, does this allow you to? No, that doesn't allow you to. Prevent password prompting. So we have a config manager policy. This will be setting a registry that prevents password prompting. I'm not sure if that stops you saving. And I know we have. I'm going to go and look in community as well.
I'm looking in community as well at the moment.
Community. Somebody you know what, I would really like AI on the search on this. That's
maybe next week.
I know there's a policy here for there's too many policies in here. Chrome started debugging now. Allow Google Chrome access to cookies only. That stops token theft from the machine. That's a really cool policy, actually. If you put this in, it'll basically prevent, again, should be stopping untrusted software, but it'll stop other trusted software reading your cookies, so your tokens, more importantly, for applications you're accessing. I can't find a password one.
I can't either.
I'm going to defer that to Rob next week, because I know that's one of his policies. I do want to show you canaries as well. You know what I think of canaries?
Go on.
The birds. so
useful for miners.
Okay, so here's the problem with canaries as a strategy. And I say this, we have a policy for canaries, and I'll show you how to do that in a second. But the idea of a canary is you put a file somewhere on your machine. If that file changes, someone access something they shouldn't. So you put a file in saying, my super secret passwords or my super secret financials. If someone touches that file, then it triggers an alerts and you can automatically lock things down. There's a reason I don't like it. They were really, really effective in about 2015 to 2017. Because what would happen, as soon as a ransomware touched that file, that process would be killed, the system would be locked down, things would happen. And what happened was ransomware started getting really, really smart and looking at the modified date, stop going in A to Z order because they typically put the canary starting with A. And there's so many files on your machine, you can literally get through half your files before you even hit the canary. So it's not a great strategy for stopping ransomware. Account is far more effective to stop encryption of file or stopping untrusted software. But it's still a strategy. It still has some value. It can also detect insider threats. I will show you how to do this. If you go to my screen here, if I go into endpoint detect policy, I can say canary file detection. And I can go down to my conditions and I can say canary file path matches, and I'm pretty sure I can do this, but I'm going to go and I should have said this, tested this beforehand. Oh no, maybe I put it in a profile. I'm not sure if I can use a wildcard so it'll check. I'm going to go and check that, but let's just say I'm going to put it in my public share. I'm on my server, and I'll say share all staff salaries. Basically, we say if this file is touched, we go in, we create alert, and we can send an alert. We could also respond by blocking access to the share and things like that.
So although not your favorite, still worth putting on.
It might help you determine nosy employees.
Especially if you name it password list or salary, payroll.
Yeah, but it's not the most effective way, but it also, again, costs nothing, has very little impact, is unlikely to create massive amounts of false positives. So, zero cost. If you're using ThreatLocker, zero cost because it's part of the detect engine, but if you're not, if you're going to buy a system to prevent ransomware, I wouldn't look for a canary system first. It would be my last choice. There are a lot out there. Is the ThreatLocker ingester part of the standard license? I think we already discussed this, that you can use it ingester. It doesn't cost to use the ingester, but it costs per data we ingest. Okay, so somebody asked, what did I say better than a canary? Well, better than the canary is stopping untrusted software, ring fencing applications so they can't write first. But the second thing better than the canary is the first thing we were talking about, which is the mass change. Configure a policy that says this is the maximum amount of files that can be changed. You can even specify a folder name in there. So you don't have to do this. So the way I did it was set up any changes on the system. But if you say, here's my QuickBooks share, here's my common file share, here's my financial share, I'm going to say if the path is this and the action is right and the occurrence is greater than 20, because that's all that should be writing to my financial share, and it goes above that, then automatically block access to that share. You can set them on a share basis as well, which is really cool.
And going a bit more granular lets you be a little more stricter.
Yeah, again, because then you can say this share is very, very busy, so I'm going to exclude it. I'm also not too worried about the data being lost because maybe it's family photos. Too many of them.
You're trying to get in trouble today, aren't you?
Yeah. But it's much, much better to limit file access. Canaries, like I say, it doesn't cost anything. CPU impact is negligible. And is the configure Windows recall show status? How do you enable? Somebody did say it says there's two options: configure Windows recall, the policy name is, and then you can say enable Windows recall and disable Windows recall, or not configured. Not configured means it's very much like the Active Directory policy. We're not going to change the current setting. So if the current setting is enabled, it's good. We're not going to do anything. If it's disabled, we're not going to do anything. We're going to leave it as is. Enable or disable actually explicitly sets it, and the reason we don't like using not configured too much, but because no one really knows what it's set to. Then it should be set to this or set to this. You should know, but you can select either from that drop-down list. Okay. I
can't think of a reason why you'd want to turn it on.
And thank you, everyone. Thank you, Michael. And it's been a while since you've been on a webinar. And if you want to get access to the Syslog tool, please just reach out to your account manager, USC, and we can have access available within 24 hours. And also for Impossible Travel, if you want to gain access to the new Impossible Travel. It doesn't cost anymore. It's part of your Cloud Detect, the Impossible Travel.
Everything on the Syslog is on the beta portal, so you do have to use beta.threatlocker.com.
Yes, to review. I guess technically the Unified Audit doesn't matter, but we recommend you use it because...
Yeah, there's some display differences between the two, so it's best to use beta.
Okay, and again, if you have something that we don't have a native... I know we've got Ubiquity right now, we've got F5.
We have Big-IP and we have Meraki.
Oh, Meraki. If we don't have... Just set it up with regular ingestion, and then ask, and we'll get you a ingester that passes all your data into the exact fields. Enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you very much, everyone. Thank you, Mike.
Thank you, Danny.